Bonnie, nice to meet you.
Bonnie, hi. Bonnie, hi.
Get talking together. You start.
Hi, my name is Bonnie Sainsbury. I'm the founder of Social Media Smarter. We're a full-service digital marketing company. We do community management by contract, blog coaching. We do one more thing. Oh, it doesn't matter. So I'm a member of the Bunker Project, which is one of the longest running social media podcasts. I'm also co-host of Women Talking Tech, which is a reasonably new webcast. And 2 weeks ago, I was named number 13 on the Forbes Top Women Social Media Influencers. And thank you. And last week, I was named by the same organization number 28 out of 50 for the social media influencers. So, I've just started to breathe again.
Well, I was on Forbes' list, but my name's Alexandra, and I'm a fashion and style blogger to Vogue or Bust. It's all about kind of relatable fashion, and I just try to make styling really accessible for everyone. And I'm also a social media marketing manager at Obaki. It's a local brand and charity, and their clothes are amazing. Yeah, that's me.
Hello, my name is Lima Al-Azzeh. By day, I'm in social media marketing and community management at a company called Invoke. And by night, I'm a blogger at Vancouverite, and I basically talk about, it's more of a life and culture blog. I'm an Arab Canadian, so just kind of talking about the duality of nationalities and how everyone's from Canada but sort of not from Canada at the same time.
I'm Rebecca Bollwitt, and I write Miss604.com. And I also have a company, 64 Media. I started both. I started the blog in 2004. I started 64 Media and took my blog full-time in 2008. I published 2 books, Blogging to Drive Business and Blogging to Drive Business, 2nd edition, which I count fully as 2 books. And yeah, I spend my days writing about Vancouver lifestyle, events, history, and all the things great about this region and the 604.
My name's Lynda Brown-Ganzert, and it's interesting to me because I'm more of a connector than an influencer, so one of these things is not like the other. So I'm going to kick off with some questions here. I'm the founder of zuluMe, which is a mobile communication utility, which means basically that we connect people in really small private groups, family, friends, patients, that's what we do. And I'm really delighted to be here with everyone. And this term influencer is an interesting one as a label. And I guess the first question is really like, do you consider yourself an influencer, and why? And how did your story start?
I'll bite the bullet and start. I use the term influencer probably 100 times a day for my coworkers who know me. It's like, are you doing influencer outreach? Are you doing influencer outreach? Like, I get that all the time. But then to have that flipped, it makes me a little uncomfortable to be an influencer. I don't know how much of an influencer I am. I'm just sort of glad that people are reading my stuff. And I think the most exciting part about blogging or sort of having a voice on the internet is the possibility that people can come and find it and sort of just relate. I've had some really interesting stories where my aunt lives in the Middle East, in Qatar, and I talk about the Middle East a lot, and one of her coworkers just randomly had gone up to her and was like, I've been reading this blog about this Palestinian girl who lives in Vancouver and blah, blah, blah. And I was just like, oh, and my aunt was like, that's crazy, that's my niece. So I don't know if it's, I don't know how comfortable I am with the term influencer, but I'm definitely I'm just glad that I'm someone who's recognized as someone who's passionate about what she does.
Yeah, I guess it is kind of an uncomfortable term to throw at yourself, or I've never really considered myself an influencer because I've always feel like I'm muddling day to day, even when I get a grasp and even when it is my career, both via blogging and through my work with Obaki. It's still something that it's not a clearly defined landscape, and we're sort of the people who are defining it, I suppose. So it's hard to feel like you're really making that influence. But yeah, my story started because I was thinking I was going to go to law school. I don't know why I was thinking that I was going to do that. But then I was like, you know what, actually, I'm going to challenge myself. I'm going to do the writing. That's what I've always been passionate about. And I kept following that path. And so it's been a step-by-step process. So I know I'm influenced by a lot of people, but I think that what's cool about this landscape is that it is such a kind of two-way street. It's always about engagement. I think that's why it's you're influenced and you're an influencer, and it's a really kind of full circle thing that happens so often. And I guess that's actually the key to success too, is being open to interaction and being open to engaging with your community.
So I'm a marketer, and I don't make any apology for that. So that's influence. That's influencing. And if you have a system and people are buying, you're changing people's lives because of your marketing, and you want to call it influencing, then that also means you're successful. That doesn't necessarily mean you're successful. It means the system works. So I don't have an issue with that. We often ask our clients, how famous do you want to be? Same thing.
I think that being an influencer means that you've been influenced by others. So when I first started doing what I was doing, I would go to bar camp and unconferences and Northern Voice and all those kind of great events like this and listen to others speak. And without hearing those others speak and connecting with them, people like Maura and Sonia who are here, I wouldn't have been able to build, to take that information, take that inspiration and run with it. So being an influencer, I guess, I influence whoever reads my site, perhaps, about something to do with Vancouver, from my mom to anyone else. Yeah.
So this is a pretty amazing panel before us, and I think probably one of the questions in the audience is, good content, bad content, and how do people form a relationship with you to help you, for them to influence you to promote their business or brand or idea or project? What's the best way to go about doing that?
Okay, I'll start. I have the microphone, then I'll pass it. So for content, the best way to, sorry, we discussed this before too. The best way to pick the content and pick who you want to influence, I guess. Yeah, because I get the question, who's your demographic? I'll get that, someone will send me an email saying, dear influencer, and then they'll say, who's your demographic? And it starts with, number one, I write about things that I'm interested in. So if I'm not really interested in it, I probably won't write about it. So number one, it's for me, and my writing is for me. And I know my friend Raul from Hummingbird 604, he was always like, it's all about me. I write about me all the time. Like, I agree with you. But I guess, yeah, for the content, something I'm interested in, and then I just decided, I created my own demographic. I want to write for families. I want to write for young professionals. I want to be able to still say, personal. I want to write about personal trips to Iowa. I know people from Vancouver probably aren't very interested in reading about Iowa, but I hear people say, oh, I love your photos of that barn and the flatness. Like, yeah. My husband's from Iowa, so that's why I write about Iowa randomly. But I like that I can still pepper in those personal notes into my site. And I think that's kind of good content for me, things that still have kind of my personal expression in them.
Well, mine isn't a personal blog. It's a business blog. And if you want to know about me, very little, Facebook. Mostly it's business, so I have a totally different point of view. And content, to me, is engaging. It's all about, because I coach businesses, we talk about their community and how to engage their community so that they'll come back. And that's totally different than what Rebecca does.
Oh, my blog's a business, though, as well.
Right. No,
Yeah.
I understand that. You're very famous, and you got famous doing that, and also because you're very good at what you do. I understand that. But it's a different point of view. The businesses usually don't speak about themselves. They'll talk about their niche. They'll talk about their customers. So a really good example of that is a copy blogger. So where they talk about social media all the time and very little about their actual company. So as far as I'm concerned, content is absolutely the most important thing. And often the campaigns spend more money on copywriting if they don't have someone within their organization who's a very talented writer.
So my background's actually in journalism, so my whole thing is that it should always be about storytelling, and I think that people want an authentic story, and when it evolves into not just a story but a business, it's also that transparency and that connection with your audience, and like Rebecca was saying, like your audience and you know who you're talking to, and it should be you, and it should be quite specific to you. And I think that's the beauty of blogging or a lot of digital media too, is that you can really find your niche. It can be the most specific, weird niche, like a whole blog that's dedicated to people who are biking and taking pictures of them from behind, and it has a huge audience, and people love it, and they have, it's made this whole movement. And I think that's the point, is finding the kind of the little things and making a story about it, whether it's you or whether it's your outfit. Like my outfit is always, whether I'm making it up or it is actually a story, like I'll present it as a story that will engage my readers and hopefully have a beginning, kind of a climax moment, but it's an outfit, I don't really know how, but something that's that hook, and then some sort of resolution. I think that's where people make that connection and they see that whole kind of complete evolution.
Yeah, I would largely agree with what everyone is saying. I think what we generally like, when I'm at work and I'm discussing content with clients, a lot of the time it's sort of just kind of, also, I think good content is about embracing the possibility that maybe your audience wants to hear you speak on a subject that you never really even thought they would want you to, would actually listen to you if you talked about it. So I think for, kind of for brands these days, the idea is to sort of really test out a lot of different kinds of content and a lot of different themes. And I'm an analytics junkie, so I'm a huge believer in data sort of telling you the impact of your storytelling and how far and wide your message is actually reaching, and sort of just making it about those, stories about the greatest common denominator. So what matters the most to this, this specific group of people, and just making sure you're really speaking to that, or inviting other people who are better at speaking about it. I do a lot of interviews on my blog, partially because sometimes I know people are probably tired of hearing me talk, and but secondary, like akin to that, is just the more you can raise other people's voices in your community, the more your content's actually going to have an impact.
So sort of building on that and, using data and the tools at hand, what would your advice be, whole panel, in terms of how do you choose the right tools? How do you choose the right channels? There's so much at everyone's disposal. What should go into that decision-making process?
I think it's really about finding a platform. I think you should always become familiarized with every single platform as much as you possibly can, but if you have particular success in one platform, then I have a fellow blogger who's got this voice on Twitter that people just latch onto, and she will have so much more success kind of focusing her efforts on something that she's so naturally amazing with than trying to constantly move through like Pinterest, Facebook, Instagram. And she has all of those, but she really focuses her efforts on Twitter. Did you mean social media platforms or just... Yeah, and then in terms of analytics too, it's applying a lot of, I guess, general marketing parameters to the way that you go about looking at things and making those reflections and analysis and just keeping track of it. But I think that you don't have to be an expert at everything. Sometimes you can find what you're most amazing with and really just capitalize on that.
So we use the social media channel where our community is. And that, depending on what your project is, that changes. My favorite is Twitter, and we always use Twitter. But depends. And usually always a blog too. Other than that, it's whatever your community and also the team that are probably going to take over the management of the project after we've got it ramped up. So that makes a big difference depending on exactly who they are and what tools they like to manage that particular channel.
Okay, I'll go. Well, when I first started doing Facebook, when I thought about a Facebook page a few years ago, I have only had my Miss 604 Facebook page for maybe 2 years, which is way behind the game for everything else. I started Twitter in 2007. So Twitter was kind of the first social network I used to promote my blog, to network, and do everything there. Facebook, to me, I thought, why would I want to put something on Facebook when I want people to just come to my site? I don't want to just post it there. Then I soon realized you can't ignore Facebook, so you have to have a presence there. My personal Facebook page is locked down, so it's not personal content. It's just, again, sharing different information. And so that I don't flood people with the same link, same info. Come read my post, come read my post, come read my post. I try and change it up. So Pinterest, it's a photo of like a history post. I just put the photo on there. Facebook will have maybe a link, maybe a poll question, and then Twitter is just the title and the link. So I guess over the years I've just figured what will help drive traffic in without being the same message over and over again, still reaching those audiences but not tiring them out.
Yeah, I think Rebecca makes a really salient point there. With social media, we're obviously faced with like a litany of choice, and I think it's really important before you make any decisions as to what platform you want to use is to actually remember, the impetus behind why that platform was actually created. So with Facebook, I find it's really hard to figure out what you're going to put up because you can put up any kind of content you want. You can put up a photo, you can put up a video, a link, whatever it is. But I think the important thing to remember is that Facebook initially, first and foremost, started as a network to connect people. So stories about, people, communities, connections are probably going to do the best on Facebook versus, you go to an Instagram and obviously it's like fast, beautiful photo sharing, but then you look at the quality of the photos and the types of photos that people are sharing, and you kind of have to really follow the conventions of the platform, to a T in order to kind of make it on that platform or be seen as an influencer on that platform. Otherwise, like if you don't think you have enough content to sort of, if you don't have enough content for Instagram that's, original and very human and personable, and you're telling a story through photos, then don't be on Instagram. So I think the idea is that, you have a ton of choice. You don't have to be on everything all the time, and you just kind of really have to remember what the purpose was behind it and try and follow those conventions and speak to that purpose, and you'll probably your content will reach far and wide.
So, because what happens at Founders Collective stays at Founders Collective, what's the funniest or most embarrassing sort of reaction you've had to, let's say, some content you've posted? And what would your advice be for dealing with content that maybe goes sideways?
I'm trying to think of something that was especially embarrassing. I mean, like my full first year of blogging was embarrassing. If I could, I would just like delete it. It used to be bubblegum pink. It was like, I didn't know anything. Like I don't have any background in digital media at all. It's self-taught, so there was a very sharp kind of learning curve there. I remember I did a post about Elaine Bennis. I think I was trying to figure out, I'm like, maybe I'm a funny blogger. And I like posted something, I'm like, I like Elaine Bennis. And that was my post. And it's like, it's just so off from who I am. Oh, I love Elaine, but like it was like not a fashion blog specific thing. And I don't think I've gotten bad feedback. I mean, I've had some hate comments before. Nothing like embarrassing, but just people will be mean online. But yeah, I can't really think of anything. But hate comments, yeah.
I learned not to use DM on Twitter the hard way. Yeah, I don't even remember I really don't remember what it was. Normally, I try to stay as neutral as I can, and this was a comment that wasn't neutral. Luckily, most people didn't know who I was talking about, but Yeah, I learned just to not do that. Other than that, there's people that don't like what you do sometimes, and I just unfriend them.
Mine's like Bonnie's. It was a DM error. And it was very embarrassing because a friend was chatting with me in DM, and they said something, someone was doing something to them, and I was supporting them, and I said, "How is that not being a douchebag?" But I sent that to the Vancouver Art Gallery. And they were like, "Sorry?" Oh my God. And luckily I know Carolyn, I think Carolyn runs their Twitter, and I was like, "That was not meant for you. I am so sorry. The Vancouver Art Gallery is not douchebag at all." But yeah, so yeah, Twitter DM error, it happens to everyone. Well, most people. Once.
I got flat out corrected in a comment. Like, I made a bunch of errors. I did not research. I was doing this blog post about, it was a really personal blog post, so I guess I didn't really, I didn't really think of actually researching what it was I was writing, because I was like, I'm speaking from experience, it doesn't matter. But I was actually quoting like practices in Islam, and the whole thing was about Ramadan and all that kind of stuff. And there's they're very strict practices and parameters around that. And I got a bunch of them wrong. I just flat out got a bunch of them wrong, which is really embarrassing considering I'm an Arab Muslim and I'm writing about it and I'm speaking about it to people. And this guy was actually really, really, really nice and wrote a comment on the blog, and I have it obviously all on public so everyone can see everything, and he just in point form went ahead and corrected me all the way through, and I was basically being you don't know what you're talking about, girl, and I was fuck. So I think the only way you can really deal with that is transparency. I totally kept the comment up, and I looked into what he said first just to make sure that I wasn't correcting it with more misinformation, so to make matters worse, and just corrected it, went back, made sure on the blog it said that I had updated it with corrections, and thank you to my faithful reader for pointing them out to me. But
those are really great stories. Thank you for sharing, because those are hard stories to share. I'm going to share a story because it's a question I have for all of you, and it's kind of related, but tangential maybe. So I started my first business when I was 13, and my parents have always been really supportive, and my dad's an entrepreneur as well, and he would give me, different books and things to consider in terms of being a woman and being an entrepreneur. And so a couple of years ago, when I was doing the startup, working, new family, young children juggle, we were having a scotch or two, and he said, "Lynda," he said, "you're not going to crack this until you engage the sisterhood." I'm like, okay, Dad. He's like, look at the sisters on your block. Look at the sisters in your businesses. Look at the sisters in your network. You have to help each other. You have to figure out how you are collectively going to help each other so that you can succeed in business, succeed in family, and balance each other out. He said, you're not going to, crack the glass ceiling until that happens. And that's, obviously it stuck with me. And I think one of the powerful things about today is the question of how do we help each other? If you were to turn to the person next to you and say, okay, so how do I help you? I think that could be quite powerful. So I'm curious about your thoughts in terms of taking in today your own sort of professional advice, and how do we work as a community? How do we help each other?
Well, we have a webcast, Women Talking Tech, so that says something. I'm just going to say it. Women shouldn't be promoted just because they're women. There are so many talented people around, women, men, and I think people should we should promote each other because we like each other, because this is an interesting idea. I probably have a bias toward women just because I do, but I think it was Sugar Ray just wrote, she's an SEO, quite a famous SEO person, and in that niche there's very few women who speak at the large conferences. And someone had suggested that they're not going to go to a conference unless there's at least 20% women speaking. And I don't agree with that, and she didn't either. She was very adamant about it, that the best people should be up there. Does that mean women are a little shy to speak at those kind of conferences? Probably. But I do think we should promote each other, but I wouldn't be behind promoting women. Do you know what I'm getting at here? There's enough, truly, there's enough extremely talented women around that we just promote everybody.
I guess for me at least, I almost primarily work with women. I guess every single time that I've had any position, I've only worked with women. So I don't have much experience in terms of how to navigate a mostly male-filled industry, because whether it's via my blogging collective, they're all women, or where I am currently, it's predominantly women. We don't really have to stand against men. Like, we're very already inherently girl power-esque because that's the only gender that's represented. But I think one thing I found out really early on, I don't know if it's necessarily about working with women, but just about connecting with people in your industry, and especially in something that's quite competitive and individual-based, like blogging. You're so much better served to team up, and you're so much better served to kind of help out people and to make friends and to network and go to events, not just to climb up, but I mean, like, Georgia's here, and I've worked with Georgia before in the past. She's right here, and her jewelry is amazing, and is someone else in the industry, and lots of us bloggers work with her as a team, and she's great. You know, I think that's kind of where it is really just about trying to make those connections and build each other up. It's corny, but it's true, and it really does help you actually yourself in the long run as well.
Yeah, I've actually had this discussion a lot in the past couple days, and from what I'm being told and what I've seen, my experiences, I think we need to speak up, and I think we just need to encourage each other to speak up too. I do work in an industry where there's a lot of males with huge personalities, so it's really hard. It's really hard to get in there. But yeah, like, I mean, just an example, like, a lot of the business we've been getting in is in sports, because our CEO loves sports, and which kind of feels alienating, but then we realize we have a ton of girls who fucking love sports too, and know a lot about it too, and they're gonna get in there, and they're gonna, we just have to kind of encourage them to go to those meetings, like, speak up, tell everyone how much you know about sports, and don't just shy away from the opportunity because you feel a little left out. So I think we just need to kind of be behind each other.
I think that, yeah, I agree with, like, everything everyone said, from Bonnie and everyone, that it's also, I don't know, most of my friends, most of my colleagues are male, because one side of my business is very technical, and we go to do geeky things, and I watched John Beeler print 3D. He printed my friend Dwayne's skull, because Dwayne had an MRI scan or something, and he printed it in a 3D printer, and it was like one of the most fascinating things I've ever seen in my life. So most of my friends are really geeky males, but there are also geeky females, but I don't know why I don't hang out with them more. But women who email me, who say, it's women who more frequently email me and say, can we go for coffee? Can we chat about something? And I think that's really valuable too. It's not just, sending you an email, sending you a pitch. It's having that personal connection. And I think even in my industry, getting out from behind that computer and going and seeing people and having that coffee, especially if it's, it's women who are wanting to do that with me. So that's who I will go and see and do and make partnerships with. And yeah, I think that's really valuable.
So on that note, and making connections, I mean, to really thank our organizers today for bringing us all together. Thank you. And I think that kind of wraps up our panel. We met questions? Or? Well, I'm really excited about zuluMe and where that's going, but I can talk to you over wine.
So the thing that I'm really excited about is Google Hangouts. How many people are using Google Hangouts? Yeah. So we use it for Women Talking Tech. We have a 1 hour webcast every 2 weeks. We do no editing. So far we haven't sold any advertising. That's going to change soon. It's having a conversation. And I told this story of my friend James, who actually was the one that encouraged us. He's a game developer, a very successful game developer. And he was the one that told us about how to use Google+. And his nephew left a Cookie Monster puppet when he was visiting. And so James did gaming, as in not gambling, but gaming hangouts as the Cookie Monster puppet. And he actually got involved with 2 organizations in the US. Now they talked about serious gaming with him with this stupid puppet. So we figured that 2 blondes can probably talk about tech. So can I ask, who's doing Google+? What kind of things are you doing with it? Are you using it just for clients, or?
I'm involved in a lot of nonprofit organization, and phone is expensive, long distance is expensive, and we just use Google Hangouts to connect with each other to go in Toronto and all over North America. That's pretty much.
Yeah, that's the one. An awful lot of podcasters and digital publishers are looking at Google Hangouts. If you're interested, there's Google Plus communities about podcasting, and within there's a community of Google Plus Hangouts. Google Plus is a really good way to connect with experts who you just ask them a question and they'll answer it for you for the most part.
I was going to say, personally, just use it for partners sometimes if you want face-to-face interaction with them, so not broadcasting it to a large group of people, but having a more personal way of interacting with long-distance clients and partners. The second way that we use it as a company is we have a huge community team. Our VP of community has these webinars, and he broadcasts just him and his team having fun and connecting with our fans, Suki fans, in a way that is way more personal than you could ever do over a blog post or a tweet or a Facebook post. And it's not on a huge scale, but I think they do a volume of it that it really personally attracts. And I think all of them together have a large impact, and they're just growing as people become more familiar with the platform. So, yeah.
Question about the privacy on Google. Like some of my clients have talked about they don't like it because there's this concern about Google being able to see everything you put on there and all this kind of stuff. So I don't know where people, what the panel feels about that, or if anyone can comment on Google Plus and what that means in terms of privacy.
Anybody else? If you put it out on the internet, it's not private. Anything. Emails, anything. So if it's that important, generally I do it by phone or some old-fashioned. Anybody else? Rebecca?
Yeah, it's the same thing. If it's private, don't put it online. You have to, like, there are ways to keep your privacy, with various social networks. Like I said, like my Facebook page is locked down, my private page, so you probably don't know what I was talking about yesterday. And you probably don't know where I live. Google might. Like, I've given Google permission to know where I live, or I've given them permission to.
Yeah, I think that's the angle I was
Okay.
talking about, not specifically public awareness of what you're putting on there, but Google being able to access the information that you put on there at any given time.
Yep. I've resigned to the fact that I've given them my information. I've given them full permission to have it. So if I'm in my Gmail, like I've used Gmail, I have my Google Calendar open. I don't know where I would be without Google as a part of a business tool. So I've given them that information because I want to work with them. So, yeah.
So if it's free, you are the product, right? Facebook. It's not there so that you can publish things for your grandmother. It's there for Facebook, and you're the product, not them. So sometimes it's called digital sharecropping, so that you don't control anything that you put out there unless it's your hosted blog, your hosted website. Can you think of other things? I can think of those two. But anything that's pretty much free, you're the product, so you have to act knowing that.
No, that's basically sums it up, yeah. Oh no, I'm just saying that basically is it, yeah, yeah.
So I